Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video I thought I would talk about the storm that the UK Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng has unleashed on the UK economy and the market. Now I'm not going to talk about the ins and outs of what he announced in his mini budget. I'm not even going to particularly critique his stuff. Plenty of people in various media outlets and on the internet have said enough about that. I imagine everyone's pretty bored about it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to look at it from a different angle, and I am going to take this opportunity to look at the failures that Kwasi Kwarteng did in presenting his mini budget and to apply that in a negotiation context. So I'm taking advantage of his failure to teach you one of the most important lessons that I teach anyone when I do any negotiation training. So for anyone new to this channel, I am the collaborative negotiator, professional negotiator with over 10 years of experience, and I use this channel to comment on current events and to use them as examples to help teach people how to conduct better, more professional negotiations. So the first thing I want to talk about, well, the only thing I really want to talk about actually, is preparation. Preparation is absolutely essential for any negotiation, and this is the one that so many people fail at on a regular basis. And I'm going to use the example of Kwasi Kwarteng to say this was the genesis of all his problems, his complete failure to prepare. Now we can speculate as to why he failed to prepare. You can make the argument that he is ideologically driven. You can say he was lazy, intellectually lazy. You can say he was in a hurry, in desperate need to get something out there as fast as possible. But either way, the results are plain for all to see. Now, normally, when there is a failure in preparation negotiation, the results don't come and bite you quite that quickly. It usually takes longer. So for this example, it's great that it's gone and hit him quite so quickly. We can point to that and just say we can make clear connections between what he said and what were the consequences. So let's talk about this more in a negotiation context. When you're preparing for any negotiation, or even a major policy announcement perhaps, you should always have in mind what it is your objectives or decision points are going to be. Because this is the thing you have to remember about a negotiation, and even government policy, quite frankly. You're not going into a negotiation because you want an agreement, ironically enough. You're not going into a negotiation for the sake of having a negotiation, or at least you shouldn't. You're going into a negotiation because you want something, or you want to achieve something. So you need to understand what that looks like. What is the final outcome that you are aiming for? Because whatever it is you are negotiating, it needs to drive that outcome, that success criteria. Now, it could be you need to make a decision. You're going into negotiation because you need to decide whether to buy something or not to buy something. So the whole point of the negotiation is to drive a decision point. Or you already have decided you're going to do something, but you need to find a partner that will help you achieve that objective. So your negotiation is all about establishing whether that partner will deliver what you need with the reliability at the correct price, the correct quality, and so on and so forth. So in Kwasi Kwarteng's case, and this is where some of the beginnings of his problem starts, people keep saying what are the objectives that he was trying to achieve in his mini budget. Now, of course, many people will say they'll talk about trickle-down economics as a theory, and that is indeed what has been promoted by him and the Prime Minister, Liz Truss. But many people are not so convinced, and this is part of the problem, is that his statements, when you look at his objective, don't line up very well with the analysis. So there's no clear link, and this is always a problem in politics in many ways. There's not always a clear link between the policies that a government wants to enact and the objectives that they're seeking to achieve. So, for example, where is the evidence that proves that Kwarteng, that by reducing or abolishing the 45p tax rate, the alternative tax rate, that would actually increase economic growth. He didn't produce any evidence, and plenty of people question that. So, which leads me perhaps neatly to the next point of information gathering. Where was that information to justify his case? What could the Chancellor point to say the UK government is going to carry out all these various policies because we know from this information over here that they have these benefits, these results? And I'll let you into not much of a secret when it comes to UK policy. There may be benefits, but they're always negative consequences. They're always trade-offs. And this is part of the problem of British politics, is that politicians always like to pretend there's no such thing as negative consequences or trade-offs. They have to pretend they've got it absolutely right and that there's no room for error type thing. And Kwarteng attempted to do that with his mini-budget with disastrous consequences. Because, of course, other people will not be swayed by such emotional arguments or ideology. They will focus more on the numbers. And so they will be digging. So those who do investment, those who do pensions, those who do market, they are numbers people. So they will be digging into all the information that proves or disproves what the Chancellor stated in his mini-budget. So linking back again to negotiations, you should expect the opposition to do the exact same. If you make a proposal, the opposite side, if they're halfway competent, will dig into a wide range of information sets to argue against your proposal. So of course, as part of the preparation stage, you need to have that information to hand. You need to understand it, both for and against your argument, so that when you go into a negotiation, you are well informed and you go from a position of knowledge, not from a position of ignorance. And if you go into a negotiation on an ideological basis, without hard numbers, without hard facts to back your case, then any competent negotiator will be able to tear you apart pretty quickly. Now, of course, information gathering and knowing what is relevant and factual is not always easy, especially in a highly pressured environment of politics. So what you also need to do as part of the preparation is that you need to have a deeper level of analysis, particularly critical analysis. So you need to engage experts in the field, and you need them to really drill into what it is you're proposing to the other side. And you also need them to provide friendly critical analysis. That means that they will point out all the flaws in your argument. And the theory behind this is very simple. If your own side can spot all the problems in your argument, then that gives you the opportunity to fix that before you attempt to propose it at a negotiation and get torn to shreds by the other side, and with no opportunity to provide a decent comeback. You're being caught by surprise. If you didn't spot the problem before you propose it at a negotiation, then it's going to be very difficult for you right there on the spot to fix it or to think of a good comeback, if you like. Whereas if you've done the proper, deeper analysis and critical analysis during the preparation stage, then all of that will have been done for you, and that will help you to understand the pros and cons of any argument. So when the other side makes those arguments, you are prepared with your answers. And again, this is perhaps one of the more astonishing things that you've seen both from Kwarteng and from Prime Minister Liz Truss. They don't have any counter-arguments. They appear not to have done any of the deeper analysis and are not able in any way, shape or form to convincingly argue their case. And there have been lots of media reports that they've refused offers of forecasting from the Office of Budget Responsibility and so on. And I'm going to signpost that and say anyone who does anything similar in any kind of negotiation can expect a very similar outcome to what befell Kwarteng. If you're going up against professional negotiators, they will have done the analysis and they will use that to undermine your case. So absolutely, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, You must always invite people to challenge you before you make a proposal. And that is clearly not done here. Another important point in any negotiation context is stakeholder management. And this again, this is one of the mistakes that people make, particularly if they're trying to do something controversial, they're under time pressure, they know what they're going to do or propose is going to be unpopular. They try to shortcut and cut people out of being involved. And this again is a huge tactical mistake for any negotiator trying to conduct a preparation. Stakeholder management will make or break your negotiations in many ways. You've got to spend lots of time working firstly with people on your own side and then with the other side to persuade them of the merits of your argument. And you do that by listening to them, by inviting views, by working through all the issues with them, keeping them updated, telling them when they should be involved, bringing them to the meetings, the right ones, not the wrong ones, and so on and so forth. Regular viewers on this channel will be aware that I've previously spoken about Barnier, who headed up the EU negotiations for Brexit. And for anyone not familiar with what he did, I strongly encourage you to go and look at the stakeholder management that he conducted as part of the Brexit negotiations. This is why the EU Commission trounced the UK government so comprehensively on the Brexit negotiation, or one of the reasons anyway, was because Barnier put a phenomenal amount of effort into stakeholder management. And that ultimately gave him a huge amount of power when it comes to negotiating with the UK at the negotiation table. So coming back to the present day and the context of the Chancellor's mini-budget statement, even his own MPs were hugely critical of his proposal, which tells you he had not done any stakeholder management, never mind with the rest of government, never mind with a whole variety of other important people, including the Bank of England. None of them were involved in this policy, in putting together the policy for the mini-budget. And as a consequence, none of them were able to support Kwarteng at the time when he needed it the most. So anyone going into negotiation needs to draw those lessons from that and how important it is that everybody on your side is on the same page and publicly voicing support, because that will kill your argument stone dead if you do not have that. And so having done all those previous steps, this is the point when, of course, in the preparation stage of a negotiation, you establish your strategy. I don't know if Kwarteng had a strategy. It doesn't appear he did. And just beyond that of announcing various things, there's lots of questions to be asked about what he intended and when he intended to do things. Because of all the failures of analysis, of stakeholder management, and so on and so forth, whatever strategy he had is not able to be implemented. Certainly not in the way that he intended. So again, this is one of the crucial parts of preparation. You gathered information, you've got all your stakeholders, you've got all your critical analysis, you now have a strategy on how you're going to progress. And part of that strategy includes timing. Because if you're going to do something that's unpopular or controversial, then you can't, as a strategy, just dump it all out there and hope for the best. You might, for example, have an incremental strategy where bit by bit you introduce the elements of your controversial idea in order that they gain traction before you move on to the next bit. Now, some people have made the argument, I've seen on their media and various forums, that there's elements of the mini-budget that were good. And I'm not going to comment on that one way or another. But what I am going to say is if that's true, then the elements of the mini-budget that were bad have completely derailed all the good bits because of the failure to have a strategy in terms of how Kwarteng was going to present all his proposals, evidence them, and gain support. So as a result of that, even anything good that he proposed in the mini-budget has been derailed. So there is an important lesson in that in terms of strategy. Now I'll move on to the next stage a little bit, which is which again is part of the preparation. And there's some key aspects of things that people need to do before they actually make public announcements or public statements. So you've got to start by listening. And politicians spend a lot of money and time listening to the electorate or their core voting base or focus groups and so on. And this is for a reason. This is so that you are informed by what the other side might think of what you're about to say next. Negotiation is no different. You should start by listening to what the other side have to say. And I've talked about this in various different videos. But even if you're not going to change at all what you're about to say, one of the benefits of listening first is that you get to understand the language used by the other side. And one of the more successful negotiation techniques that can be used is something called mirroring. So you take what the other side are saying, or saying that they want, for example, and then you present your proposal in that context. So let's take a silly example. Let's say someone wants a red car, but actually your car is a bit more on the maroon side rather than red. Well, you can just go there and say, oh, it's maroon. But if you know that they want a red car, you say, oh yeah, I've got quite red car here for you. I mean, quite red, not fully red, obviously, but there you go. That's a little silly example of mirroring. You're taking what they have wanted, wrapping your proposal within that, and then presenting it back to them. And this is what a lot of politics is about. They take what the electorate wants and they try and present it back to them. So taking Kwarteng ideas, some people may think they have considerable merit, particularly the tax cuts. But if the electorate as a whole doesn't feel that way, then he needs to have figured out a way of articulating his proposals in a way that sounds acceptable to them. Now, someone like Boris Johnson, and I shan't comment on his many flaws, but certainly his skill, if you like, was taking anything he was going to do and making it sound good. And he always tried to make any of his proposals sound like things people would want. So this brings me a little bit into the next one, which is conducting preconditioning. And preconditioning is very much where you sort of set the tone and you get people shifting before you've even made the proposal. So an example of preconditioning is that somebody might be expecting you to sell the car at a certain price. And you might, even before you ever say what the price is you're going to sell that car for, you might say, oh, you know, it's going to be a little bit expensive. You know, cars this year are in this particular market, and especially one with such low mileage, for example. That is preconditioning. You're preempting negotiation and making the other people automatically adjust their expectations. And again, Boris Johnson, not to talk him up at all, but he was very good at this actually. This was something he did a lot. And in fact, he got rebuked quite often by the Speaker of the House for doing this. Boris Johnson would leak a lot of his proposals to the media before he ever went to Parliament to announce them. This was a deliberate strategy, and he's not the only one that does it. Plenty of politicians do it at various different parties. They leak their proposals as part of the process of listening to the reaction, to figure out what it is their intended audience might think of those ideas and how they might react, and then they adjust accordingly. So coming back to the mini budget, this is one of the things we can see where there was a clear failure. There was no genuine preconditioning. There were some leakages, but nothing at all that would have given Kwarteng enough warning signs that his ideas were going to land extremely badly, particularly with the markets. And that's the crucial part. Without that preconditioning, without the analysis, without the stakeholder management, without having proper critical friends to tell him that things would not be received well, he blundered straight into the storm. The negotiations can be similar. It is very easy to think you've got a great idea, a great proposal, you go to the negotiation table, you present it, and it sinks badly. So part of the process is listening, it's preconditioning. It's making sure that you get a bit of a feel for what the other side likes and don't likes, and that you tailor how you're going to present your proposal in line with that knowledge that you've gained from the other side. And none of this seems to have been done. Instead, what seems to have happened is Kwarteng went straight to submitting the proposal, without analysis, without costings, without really understanding how it would be received. And this is why the UK government finds itself in the position it is currently in. And I've seen many negotiators do the same. So of course, the next thing you've also got to prepare for when negotiating is that people will counter-argue. And so you need to be prepared for the fact that you haven't done the analysis, having gathered the information, having developed a strategy, that part of that is that you will then be explaining your proposals to the other side, giving them the opportunity to absorb it, and taking away their concerns, things they want you to look into or provide further information on. Presenting a proposal and expecting no critical argument whatsoever is very uncompromising. And in negotiation terms, as a general rule, that's a bit of a path to failure. So again, coming back to the mini budget, we can see that they did not expect the argument, they just expected to railroad through it, and so they have been found wanting when it comes to trying to clarifying and defending the mini budget. So my final remarks on this episode. This highlights to me one of the key messages that I teach anybody. The absolute vast majority of negotiations, when they fail, the causes of that failure can nearly always be linked to failures in preparation. And that is no exception in this context with Kwasi Kwarteng and the mini budget. He massively failed to prepare, whether through arrogance, ignorance, ideological blindness, time pressures, whatever the reason, he didn't prepare. And so he's on the path to failure at this particular point. And he's not having an easy time of it. So anyone conducting a negotiation needs to understand this is exactly what will happen to you if you don't prepare. A flawed argument is still a flawed argument. You know, there's only so much you can polish the turd. However, what will help, if you go into it thinking you've got no flaws in your argument, then again you're going in without proper preparation. If you go in with an attitude of thinking I've done the best I can, there's bound to be a few holes in this, who are the right people to help me patch those holes? And if you have that approach, that attitude, then even if you haven't got a particularly great idea or position, others can help you improve it. And that process of improvement itself can really, really help you in terms of shaping the negotiations. It helps you to improve the argument you're going to make, the analysis that you might draw upon, and also understand how strongly you have to defend it, or where perhaps you should seek to compromise in order to get other people to buy in to adopt what it is you're going to propose. But going in with the attitude that you don't want anyone to provide critical commentary on it is not going to help your cause any way, shape or form. So the final point is that exactly that. Refusing to accept criticism as a negotiator means you're not really there to compromise. You're not really there to improve your position. And if you do that, then you are banking on the other side being unwilling to press the case or to walk away. And I've seen people do that. They literally think they've got a great idea, position, they've got a great strong hand, and that's it, the other side just have to accept it. and they will get caught by surprise when the other side says no, not interested, walks away, or completely refuses to accept the proposal. So that is the position the UK government is currently in. It's having its ideas rather solidly rejected by a whole range of people from various, different political ends of the political spectrum, and they haven't been able to adapt or respond. And all of that is linked to poor preparation. So I hope you found this video helpful. Welcome any comments or questions that people may have, particularly on a negotiation concept such as preparation. And if you enjoy this, then please do like and subscribe to the channel.